Noise gets men killed. That was true in the forests of Europe, the jungles of the Pacific, and the hedgerows of France. Long before night vision goggles and thermal optics, combat scouts relied on discipline, body control, and fieldcraft to move through hostile territory without being detected. Silent movement was not a trick. It was a survival skill refined through hard experience in places like Normandy and the dense island terrain of Guadalcanal. If you care about serious military history and practical field skills, this is where theory ends and application begins. Silence began with preparation long before stepping off. Combat scouts understood that noise discipline started before movement. Loose gear, clanking metal, and poorly secured equipment could betray a patrol instantly. Veterans wrapped metal buckles in cloth, taped dog tags together, and checked every strap for friction points. Even a loose button could click against a rifle stock at the wrong moment. The lesson is simple. Before moving through brush or darkness, inspect your gear. Shake yourself lightly and listen. If anything rattles, secure it. Tighten straps. Wrap metal contact points. Silence is engineered before it is executed. Foot placement determined whether you were heard or not. You know, the average person walks heel to toe. But when stealth really mattered, combat scouts did the opposite. They placed the outer edge of the foot down first, then slowly rolled inward, testing the ground before committing their weight. This method allowed them to feel twigs, gravel, or debris before full pressure snapped or shifted anything. In wooded terrain, scouts avoided dry leaves and brittle branches whenever possible. Instead, they aimed for soft earth, moss, or damp ground. And if they had to cross unavoidable debris, they applied gradual pressure instead of stepping down abruptly. You can practice this today. Just walk across a yard or wooded area and focus entirely on how your foot meets the ground. Slow down. Control the transfer of weight. You'll quickly notice how much quieter, deliberate movement becomes compared to casual walking. Body posture reduced both noise and visibility. Scouts moved with knees slightly bent and their center of gravity lowered. This reduced sudden shifts in balance that cause stumbling or loud corrections. A slightly crouched posture also minimized the silhouette against moonlight or skyline. In areas where enemy observation was likely, scouts kept their heads below natural cover lines, such as bushes, stone walls, or terrain dips. Movement was fluid and controlled, never rushed unless absolutely necessary. Apply this by keeping your movement smooth and balanced. Avoid locking your knees. When moving at night, stay below the horizon line whenever possible. Even in a modern context, silhouette awareness matters. Breathing control prevented unnecessary sound. You know, heavy breathing actually carries farther than most people realize, especially at night. Combat scouts trained themselves to regulate their breathing under stress. Slow inhalation through the nose, controlled exhalation through the mouth, and synchronization of breath with movement all helped maintain quiet. During halts, scouts often paused to let the environment settle. Wind shifts, animal sounds, and distant movement became easier to detect once breathing and heart rate stabilized. Practice moving short distances while consciously slowing your breathing. Notice how controlled respiration not only reduces sound, but also sharpens awareness. Hand signals replace spoken communication. You know, whispering may seem quiet, but in still air it travels surprisingly far. So, combat units replace speech with hand signals and pre-arranged gestures. A closed fist meant halt. 2 fingers pointed forward indicated movement. And a flat hand cutting downward could signal get low. During the European campaigns under commanders like Dwight D. Eisenhower, coordinated night patrols relied heavily on silent communication to avoid compromising positions. In practical terms, if moving with a partner, establish simple signals beforehand. Agree on meanings. Practice until responses are automatic. Silence is teamwork, not guesswork. Timing movement with ambient noise provided, well, natural cover. Experienced scouts did not move continuously. Instead, they moved when wind rustled leaves, when artillery fired in the distance, or when aircraft passed overhead. Natural and battlefield noise masked their own sounds. In jungle operations, sudden bursts of insect noise or wind in palm fronds provided brief windows of acoustic concealment. In urban ruins, distant shelling or collapsing debris offered similar opportunities. The principle applies today in any stealth scenario. Move when background noise rises. Pause when it falls silent. Work with the environment, not against it. Night adaptation improved silent navigation. Before stepping into darkness, scouts allowed their eyes to adjust. They avoided bright light for at least 30 minutes prior to night movement. A single flashlight beam could destroy natural night vision and reveal position. In major night operations, like those preceding the landings in Normandy, troops were briefed to preserve night vision at all costs. To apply this, dim artificial lights before entering dark areas. Use red-filtered light if necessary. Move slowly enough to let your eyes interpret shadow and depth without rushing. Route selection mattered more than speed. Scouts chose terrain that concealed both sight and sound. They avoided ridgelines where silhouettes formed. They skirted gravel roads and instead moved along soft shoulders. They preferred indirect paths if they offered better concealment. Speed was secondary to security. A slow, undetected approach was always superior to a fast, exposed one. When planning movement today, it's important to study the terrain first. Identify soft ground, vegetation cover and shadowed routes. Choose the path that reduces exposure rather than just the shortest distance. Discipline was, the foundation of stealth. Silent movement wasn't about crawling dramatically through mud. It was really about patience, preparation, and control. The men who mastered it understood that survival depended on small details executed consistently. You can develop these skills with deliberate practice. Secure your gear, train your foot placement, control your breathing, communicate silently, use terrain intelligently, move with purpose, not haste. If you value real military fieldcraft and the hard-earned lessons of combat scouts, subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who respects practical history. These techniques were refined under fire, and they remain as relevant today as they were on the battlefields of World War II.